Welcome, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Congregation Beit Tikva. We're happy to have you with us this evening for our Shabbat service. Hope you have a Siddur. If not, just join with us, sing with us, and we'll have some great music thanks to Alma and Dankoff and our pianist, Jolene Gear. So we begin with two duets. Wendy and Alma and Jolene will lead us in some traditional Shabbat melodies. The second melody is Yedid Nefesh, which you'll find in the middle page 128 in our prayer book. Source of mercy, draw your servants into the arms of God. Let's turn to the blessing over the Shabbat candles, which you'll find a beautiful reading on page 121, and then we'll sing the blessing together. In the middle of 121. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Let's sing together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'hadliknem shel Shabbat. Let's read together. We're on page 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. Let's turn to the Psalms as we welcome the Kabbalat Shabbat prayers. We always begin with 6 Psalms. And the first one is Psalm 95. On page 130 in your prayer books. L'chu Naranana. Together in the English, come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hands are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker, for Adonai is our God. And we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge to this day. Let's read from a portion of Psalm 99. We're on page 135. This psalm specifically not only talks about Shabbat, but the overarching theme of these psalms is that God is the ruler, the transcendent source of the universe, and that everything that happens in this world is based on the ultimate power or beneficence of the Almighty. And it also mentions specifically, so to speak, the special holy mountain of the Lord, which is, of course, Jerusalem. So we're reading in the middle of 135. Adonai enthroned on cherubim is sovereign. Peoples tremble, the earth quakes. Adonai is great in Zion and exalted above all peoples. They praise your name is great and awesome. God is holy. Mighty ruler loves justice. It was you who established equity, you who worked righteous judgment in Jacob. Exalt Adonai our God, and bow down to God's footstool. God is holy. Exalt Adonai our God, and bow down before God's holy hill. For Adonai our God is holy. So we turn, please, to Lecha Dodi, one of our favorite Shabbat melodies. The words are on page 138. We're singing verses 1, 2, and 9. Verse, please rise if you're able. So now that our voices are all warmed up, we're continuing singing together the Chatzi Kaddish, the half Kaddish, to mark the conclusion of the Psalms. And we continue on page 144 together. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabba, Yomadi brakirte amek mafute, B'chayekom u'vyomekron u'chayetechol Beit Yisrael. Hagala, Hagala, u'bizman kari, imru, Amen. Yeshmei Rabba Mevora, Le'olam Yamei Amaya, Yibara, Yibara, V'yishtava, Yibara, V'yitramam, V'yinaseh, V'yitala, V'yitale, V'yitala, Shemei Kedusha, V'yiru, Leila Mikol B'chata, V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata, Tamiram Yama, Imru to worship, the Baruch Hu. The words are on 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamorach, Baruch Adonai Morach Le'olam Va'ed. Let's read the first blessing together. We are on 148, reading together in the English. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night, and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Sabaoth is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim. The second blessing, Avat Olam. We're reading together at page 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and on your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Together the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Let's all be comfortable. Please be seated. We continue, as we always do, with the words of the Ahavta from the book of Deuteronomy. So we're reading together on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha bebeitecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'shachbecha v'kumecha v'pshartam leota yadecha v'hayu letotafot binan v'ktatam al mezuzot beitecha v'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you're away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. So let's turn a few pages to the words of Mi Chamocha, words from Exodus. Who is like you, O God, among all the others that are worshipped? We're singing together. We're on page 158. So we're continuing now with the magnificent duet. The music is from the prayer called the Hashkivenu, the blessing that you'll find on page 160. It's a blessing asking God to watch over us on this Shabbat, shield us, shelter us, defend us against our enemies, against illness, war, famine, and plague. Deliver us, give us a sense of peace in our world. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, v'porei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. So we turn the page, we're in the middle of page 162. Top of the page, 162, we're singing traditional Shabbat melody for Vishamru, words again from the book of Exodus. Continue with the tefillah, the prayer par excellence, the 7 blessings that we always recite on Shabbat evening and morning. So please turn with us. We're on 164. If you're comfortable, stand up. We'll sing together. We start out with a verse from the Psalms, and then turn to 166, and we continue with the first blessing. Adonai sifata tita uvia gidilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor HaMarah, El Elyon, Gomel Chazadim Tovim, Vekonei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imaot, U'mevii Gula Libnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ezrat Sarah. Page 168. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, V'chayei Kol Atarag Le'Oshiach, Mechapel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayei Kol B'Rachamim Rabim, Tzomech Noflim B'Roveh Cholim, U'matir Asurim, U'mekayem Emunato, Yishenei Achad, Mitamocha Ba'al Gevurot, U'midom Elav, Melech Limit, U'mekayem, U'matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Let's read together on 171. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, lay touched by God, will reach out to holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Let's turn to the words of the Ritzeh, the prayer that reminds us that we hope one day to all return to the land of Zion, to the land of Israel, in the middle of 175. You are with us in our prayer, our love and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadecha, yirah na'avod. A metaphorical rendition of the Modim, the prayer of gratitude, the prayer of thanksgiving. Page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul or light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, atov shimcha u'lecha na'el lehodot. So we come to the Shalom Rav, to the seventh prayer, the seventh blessing, which is a prayer for peace. We're on 178, and Alma will lead us in the beautiful music.
Shalom Yisrael Dasim Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Dasim Leolam. Tam Melech Adon Lekol HaShalom. Ki Atom Melech Adon Lekol HaShalom. Shalom Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'nei levarek et am Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Shalom Yisrael Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
We'll take a few moments for our own personal prayers.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, be acceptable to you. Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Lord, my rock and redeemer. Amen.
So before we talk about the Torah portion for the Shabbat, we always offer prayers to lift up the souls and the physical being of our friends, our loved ones, our congregants, those in need of an extra blessing, an extra refuah shlema, an extra blessing of healing. The song that we always sing together, Mishaberach, actually comes from words composed by Debbie Friedman, the late Debbie Friedman, one of the great composers and songsters of the American Jewish community, especially in the last 40, 50 years. So we'd like to think of our own loved ones, our own congregants now, Flo and Arlene and Jeff Vinnick, Doreen Hertig, Lynn Kelly, Bonnie Cantor, our Cantor Ephraim Herrera, and there are many others we're thinking of on this Shabbat, so I'll ask if anyone in the congregation wants to mention a name of a loved one. And we sing together Misha Berach, which is asking God to bless the ones who are before us, to give them courage, to give them life, to give them healing. So if you're in the prayer book with us on 371, let's lift up our voices with Alma, Wendy, and Jolene. So this Shabbat is called Shabbat Truma, the Shabbat literally of an offering, because everyone in the Israelite congregation in the desert was asked to make an offering to help create, to help build and sustain the portable sanctuary, the Mishkan, that would be carried on the shoulders of the various Levitical families through the desert. This is a very beautiful, aesthetically nuanced Torah portion, but it has a deep, profound spiritual meaning, because it's not just about architecture, it's not just about building certain materials, making the altar, making the Ark of the Covenant, the curtains, the rods, and the appurtenances that help hold up the curtains around the Ark, but it is about the inner light, the inner radiance of the sanctuary. Why is the sanctuary so important? Because the ancient Hebrews needed a presence, a place where they believed God's glory, God's presence would enter into the physical universe. It doesn't mean that God was in that building. I mean, we know that's absurd. That's an anthropomorphism. But the idea is that in chapter 25, it says, "Let them build for me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them." It doesn't say that I may dwell in it. In other words, God's not going to dwell in the building. God shall dwell within them, meaning all the people, means that ultimately godliness will hopefully reside in the hearts of each and every person who is there in the desert carrying forward for the next 39 years. Think about it carefully, because there's a big difference between saying God will be in it, God will dwell within it, and saying God shall dwell within the people, amongst us. Believe me, the rabbis spent a good 1,000 years arguing about that phrase. but it has even many more levels of interpretation if you read the Zohar. So I just want to spend today, this evening, a few moments talking about one of the other principal symbols of Judaism, namely the six-pointed Star of David. Actually, the six-pointed Star of David is probably the most recognizable, quote, Jewish symbol, but it's not necessarily the most important. Why did the six-pointed star become so important for us? Relatively late in history, you know, the Hindus used the six-pointed star in their ancient culture almost 4,000 years ago. It wasn't simply a quote-unquote Jewish symbol. What happened was when the printing press was invented and prayer books were being printed in the late 1400s, printers in Germany and Europe began to use the six-pointed star, the Magen David, as kind of the preeminent symbol of, quote, Jewish life. And so we know that if you look at gorgeous illuminated manuscripts of the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, you will often see many iterations of the six-pointed star. But the oldest and actually the most important symbol that was embedded in the construction of the sanctuary and the tabernacle is not the six-pointed star at all. It's the menorah. The most important symbolic thing in that portable sanctuary was the seven-branched candelabra. The seventh-branch candlestick later is found and described in the temple that Solomon created, or Solomon built and finished in the middle 900s BCE. And so here in our Torah portion, for the first time we read about this seven-branch menorah. It says that Moses shall make a lampstand of pure gold, its base and its shaft, with its cups and its calyxes and all of its petals, all shall be of one piece, another one piece of gold. That would be an extraordinary work of art for any jeweler. 6 branches shall issue from its sides. So reading the description of how this menorah was to be built or created, fashioned, as we might say, in a shop, is kind of confusing. In fact, the tradition, the Talmud says, Moses had problems figuring out how to make a menorah. There were 3 things that seemed to present difficulties for Moses, our prophet. And God had to continually show Moses, how do you go about making a menorah? And then there's another story in the Talmud which says, because Moses couldn't remember how to create a menorah, the angel Gabriel had to come and visit him, perhaps in his sleep, who knows, and show him an image of what a menorah looked like so that he could help fashion it with those who were master craftsmen in his community. Nevertheless, Moses kept mixing things up. And then we learn that after Moses forgot a 3rd time how to build a menorah, God says to him, don't worry, Al Tidak, don't worry, the details will be remembered by Bezalel, your master artist, your master craftsman, which is, to be sure, exactly what happened in the book of Exodus. Bezalel was the one who fashioned the menorah. So why is the menorah so important? It actually has something to do with the personality of Moses, because we think of Moses as kind of almost a superhuman person. He was, in fact, the first Navi, the first prophet, but the fact is he's also human. He's imperfect. He's got foibles. His memory might not be so perfect. All of us these days seem to have a little bit of problems with our memory now and then. And Moses wasn't exactly the perfect artist or craftsman. He had other great qualities. He had other strengths. And if you think about it, what we need in our community is many, many people with a multiplicity of strengths, of talents, and special God-given talents in order to create something beautiful. In the words of the Mishnah, there is no one who doesn't have his or her hour, and nothing which does not have its place. The reason I'm quoting that is to say each of us has something special within us. Each of us embraces a special quality or qualities, and we can do something extra special for the community. We don't have to be like Moses, we don't have to be like Miriam, we don't have to be as talented as Bezalel, or perhaps the great singers in the ancient world, but each of us is irreplaceable. Each of us has a luxurious weave of special talents with which we can lift up our community. So think about it again, think about the menorah. The menorah has technically 7 lights. Each light is unique. That's what this is all about. The only thing that can make a menorah not kosher, by the way, is if the lights are jagged, if one light is above the other, or so forth. And you've seen all kinds of Hanukkah lamps, Chanukiot, and other menorahs. The proper kosher menorah is that all the lamps are on one level, on a straight line, which is to say, no one light can be above the other. No one light is better than the other. We all live in this real world. The Talmud says we need to remember that each one of us, regardless of our strengths or weaknesses, we're all really in the same physical material level. We're humans. We're not going to get out of this world alive. We have greatness and we have weakness. We have a vision of infinity and we are finite. And the Talmud reminds us that actually in the olden days, Jews were told not to try and recreate the perfection of the menorah, which is described in Exodus 26. Because the menorah in the great temple of Solomon was, so to speak, irreplaceable. It was something unique. Each one of us is unique. We cannot be replaced. Those 7 burning flames testify to the unique shining light that emanates from each and every one of our hearts. You know the phrase, the human soul is the lamp of God? It's another way of saying each one of us has a light from within that emanates into this world. And with that light, with that ancient menorah, we can do great things in this world. We can make peace. We can create justice. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So thank you for being with us for this, for our Shabbat service. Here in Santa Fe these days, it's rather chilly, 5 or 10 or 12 degrees. I hope perhaps wherever you are, sitting in your comfort of your living rooms, it's a little bit warmer. In the coming week, well, on Shabbat morning, we will have Torah study as we always do at 9:30. Next Wednesday, here in this sanctuary, we will have the memorial service for our dear friend and congregant Judith Kingsley Fitting. So if you're able to join us in person, that service will be Wednesday the 9th at 2 p.m. I hope everybody's received a copy of our winter newsletter. You should have received a hard copy in the mail. If you haven't, give us a call and we'll make sure you receive that. Of course, you can always read everything about us on the web at beitikvasantafe.org. And we invite you to be with us again in the coming week. Next Friday night, next Shabbat, Cantor Ephraim Herrera will be singing with us again. Okay, so let's continue with our closing prayers. The first closing prayer is always the Aleinu, and you'll find it page 586 in the prayer book. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tekdu l'yotzer reshit, shelo asanu v'yaratot, v'lo shamanu k'mishmishor ha'ama, shelo sam elkeinu kahem, v'yor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'ananu באים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Let's remain standing for a couple of minutes. I want to acknowledge once again Jolene, our pianist, and Lindy and Alma, our flautists and clarinetists. Thank you so much for the beautiful music. And Mary is recording our service for all of us to enjoy. So we turn now to the meditation before we come to the Kaddish. If you'll look on page 579, very bottom of page 579 in the prayer book in the Siddur, let's read this passage together. Each person has a name. We each have a name given by God and given by our father and mother. We each have a name given by our stature and smile, given by our attire. We each have a name given by the hills and given by the walls. We each have a name given by the stars and given by our friends. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearnings. We each have a name given by our enemies and given by love. We each have a name given by celebrations and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons, given by our blindness. We each have a name given by the sea and given by our death. On this Shabbat, we remember with love and affection our congregant Judith Kingsley Fitting, who was passed away just over a week or so ago, and this is the period of Shloshim while we remember her for these first 30 days of mourning. We also remember on this Shabbat Al Chapman, longtime member of Congregation Beit Tikva, of blessed memory. Betty Glucken, sister-in-law of Eleanor Brenner, of blessed memory. And Elizabeth Bernick, mother-in-law of Joan Bernick, of blessed memory. Let's turn to the Kaddish. It's on 598, page 598, and we'll read together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach chirotei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol Beit Israel, v'agala b'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mavorach le'olam amei amayah, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei v'yidusha v'richu, le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Well, may the Holy One who creates harmony in the high heavens bring us peace, bring peace to the people of Israel, the land of Israel, and everywhere in this world. We say together, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael.
Our final melody for Shabbat evening is, of course, the Kiddush, the sanctification of this special day. The words for the Kiddush are page 123, if you're following in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'rata banu, b'shabbat kadsho yavo ratzon inchilanu, zikaron le'maaseh bereshit, kihu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivonu b'chata, yotanu hidashta, mikol amim, v'shabbat kadshecha, v'yahava u'ratzon, inchiltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim tovim. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Thank you for being with us.